Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Dwarfs, and I'm going to be facing off against the Greenskins. So as you can expect, there will indeed be a lot of black orcs, a lot of squigs, and a lot of that kind of fun business coming my way. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this one. So this is kind of my new standard build against the Greenskins, and I feel like it's relatively well-rounded. I feel like one of the weaknesses it might have would be against heavy Doom Diver catapult builds in conjunction with the Rusty Airs and a few Goblin Archers to kind of deal with my Gyrocopters. But anyways, gonna go ahead and go over the army composition real quick. So I got some Dwarf Warriors here, I have Longbeards here, and then I have the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. So these guys I feel are pretty cost effective for how much you're paying, and they have pretty darn good stats with 50 melee defense, and when you compare that to Longbeards, it's about the same, give or take. So it's pretty darn good. They have 39 melee attack, and just good stats all around. I'm a big fan of these guys. And they also do have that flame attack, which is pretty cool. In the backline, I have the Grumbling Guard, which are just an absolutely excellent unit. The R they provide is great. They have good stats, and they hold up pretty well against Black Orcs, especially in conjunction with the support of Runesmiths. So I also have two more groups of Longbeards with great weapons. So my infantry corps is very, very small, which isn't bad because I can kind of make like a really, really tight little box here, and then make sure that everyone's getting those huge buffs from the Rune Lord. And it's a pretty hard shell to crack without, heavy-duty siege or things like that. So I definitely think it's quite strong. So in conjunction with that, I decided to go with a bit more of a well-balanced Gyrocopter build because as you guys had seen in previous games, and you kind of saw its pitfall, was that I was going with a lot of Gyrocopters that were meant to kill squigs, which are these ones. So these ones don't have the armor piercing or the anti-large bonus. They do pretty substantial damage to lightly armored units, so against squigs who only have 50 armor, they do pretty good. Granted, the Gyrocopters with brimstone guns don't do bad against squigs either, but I decided to bring two of each, so I have two of the steam cannons here and then two of the brimstone guns here. Because again, I do have the three Longbeards, and then the Rune of Wrath and Rune is really, really good at dealing with black orcs, but more so, having the armor-piercing missiles is really, really helpful. And also the bombs, of course, are quite good. And again, thank you guys for teaching me to use those. I remember I played like probably 10 or 15 Dwarf games, a few months ago, and I just never used to use the bombs, but it makes a big difference. So thank you guys for that. So my opponent's army, he's got some black orcs here. He's got a whole front line, so it's all black orcs, and you can see he's already taken some fire from those Gyrocopters. And then in the back, he did bring some orc arrow boys, which is pretty good, so he'll be able to put some pressure. Personally, I think bringing the Rusty Arrows might have been a little bit better, or at least, bringing the Rusty Arrows and then two orc arrow boys would have been good, but you can see he's already retaliating. He gets a nice missile fire. He has Wurzog over there, so he's able to get a pretty nice little magic missile effect. So that's his kind of main core of his army, and then on top of that, he has a ton of squigs. So he has squigs everywhere. So this whole side is squigs, and then he's got Wurzog dancing back there, getting ready to come party. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, and I guess we're already right into the battle, so I guess I jumped gun a little bit, but you can see the Gyrocopters over here are already applying some pretty good pressure and doing bombing runs on these squigs, and you can see they're wavering. They have pretty low leadership, so the Gyrocopters, especially with efficient bombing runs, can rout squigs off pretty quick, which is really important because they can absolutely tear dwarves to pieces. So those squigs are already routed off and broken, which is great, so they're not going to be part of that initial shock. On that same note, the opponent is coming in. You can see the Black Orcs are taking quite a bit of HP damage from the Rune of Wrath and Rune, and they're getting in there, and all of his forces are kind of coming down, so it's going to be just a wild cockfight. But the Gyrocopters, just keeping them constantly pressuring is very, very important. So you can see the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass charge in, and then the Longbeards with great weapons, the Grumbling Guard get in here. So it's going to be a very, very tight pitched battle here. But I kind of like this with this build, keeping everyone high and tight. So again, this little formation, I should have pulled them in because they're going to get isolated by the squigs. But on that same note, I do have the Gyrocopters kind of sitting above and avoiding the missile fire, and they're literally just sitting here. This one group is shooting at these Black Orcs, this other group is doing bombing runs here and doing a pretty good job, and they should be able to rout off the squigs pretty quick now that they're going to be focusing their fire. So, and I believe this is the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune, so just look at the damage it does to this group of Black Orcs. They still have 54 models, which is a lot. Their HP is really low. It's at like 40%, and they're fighting against Dwarf Warriors up here, and here come the armor-piercing troops who were kind of fighting those Black Orcs, but I decided to kind of pull them together with the Dwarf Warriors. But you can just tell how strong the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune is. So continuing to do bombing runs here, and bombing runs against clumped squigs is really good. They'll break really fast. So every chance I get, I am using the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune and the regular Rune of Wrath and Rune. And something I forgot to mention in the army layout kind of section of the game is that I have two Runesmiths, I have a Thane, and then I also have a Rune Lord here. So the one Runesmith, he has the full set of abilities, including the secondary augmentations. But my third Runesmith, all he has is the Rune of Wrath and Rune. He's really just to deal with the squig spam. Kind of a tongue twister there. Pretty funny. But the Gyrocopters here doing a great job of chasing off the squigs. And you can see just a few good bombing runs, and they mass routed. So what I'll do now is just use these guys to kind of screen and chase these guys off and make sure they don't come back into the battlefield as easily. My opponent is focusing down this Brimstone gun with the Rusty Arrows, which isn't a bad idea because this is one of the few armor-piercing answers I have. Because this is a very pitched battle. He does have Wurzog, so he is getting Ere We Go. And you see all those different buffs here are definitely going to make his forces really, really strong. But the Grumbling Guard are not pushovers, especially the support of this Rune Lord here, who definitely just pimp slapped the Black Orcs pretty good. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at his combat stats. So yeah, he doesn't have the most impressive combat stats, but God, his augmentations are incredible. This is just a regular Rune of Wrath and Rune here, but the Master Rune of Oath and Steel is pretty good. Granted, they have the armor piercing, so it's not as good. And also on top of that, he can give 44% damage resistance. So in really tight circumstances, he can essentially just negate half of the incoming damage, which is really, really strong. So over here, unfortunately, Wurzog did get a nice little jump on my isolated Runesmith. I think he charged and kind of knocked him out of the fray and was able to break him. So that was a tough situation. But Wurzog is quite low also. He was in kind of the pitch battle for quite some time and was taking a lot of damage. But my Gyrocopters shortly here will be switching on to him. And they do have an anti-large bonus, which will proc against him considering he is riding a 4. So in the down and dirty here, you can see it's just very, very pitched. But thankfully, I was able to clean up this side of the battle and win because that's where my Rune Lord was. So his forces were able to win this flank for the most part up here. So he's kind of collapsing down to me right now. But I think I have a really, really strong core here. And you can see these Longbeards and the Grumbling Guard are still in decent shape. But unfortunately, the Gyrocopters were able to kind of slow their return, but they weren't able to stop these Squigs from coming back. So the Squigs are getting in here and are doing some pretty devastating damage. And they do have a pretty decent little charge for how much you're paying for them. But hopefully the Dwarves can kind of stay the course and finish this fight strong. So the Gyrocopters are continuing to fire, which are just absolutely essential to my victory. And I really, really like them against Squigs, and even against Black Orcs, it's pretty good. And you can see a lot of the units are kind of breaking now. Just that perpetual pressure from that flying Air Force is doing so great. And kind of the Arrow Boys have just been shooting at the Gyrocopters, but their damage, if you guys take a look, it's not that great. These ones are sitting really close, so their accuracy isn't as much of an issue, I don't think. I think that should be a variable, but they've just been relatively inefficient this game, but still, it's good to have, something to, shoot at them rather than just letting them go full hog here. So most of the Greenskin forces were actually routed here. So you can see I have this little pocket here, and they're very beat up. So I have some Longbeards here. I have another group of Longbeards with great weapons, and then the Grumbling Guard have 16 models. And I have this Runesmith who's at about 5%. I have a Rune Lord here who's at 60%, and a Thane, thankfully, who's in really, really good shape. So you can see these guys are starting to take some fire from the Brimstone guns, and these guys have pretty low leadership. They're very low tier units, so you can see these ones are kind of shaken, and they're probably on the brink of running away. And you can see a lot of really beat up units on both sides. But thankfully, the Dwarves, when you have that little end game pocket with the Rune Lord, and the Rune and Wrath and Rune is such a great resource end game in these kind of atrocious battles. It just does so much work for you. So right now, the Gyrocopters, most of them are out of ammo. So this one had a little bit left, but I decided to just land and try and shock these guys out, and then pull them back up in the sky. And it looks like it's actually paying off pretty well. The Gyrocopters are getting some nice rams in there, and it'd be pretty cool if they actually turn downward and put their blades into the troops. That would be pretty neat. But yeah, they're doing a pretty good job in there, and they're supported by the Thane and a few Dwarves that are left. But it looks like a lot of Greenskins left. But thankfully, when they do come back, this is where the Rune of Wrath and Rune will shine. So every time a group comes back that's in relatively good health, I still have the Rune Lord, and I think I have one more Runesmith here, and I think there was one over here that was kind of beat up. It doesn't look like it, but I have a few troops coming back from route. But for the most part, the Wurzog was indeed killed by the Gyrocopters, so it was a pretty hard leadership hit for a lot of his troops. So very well played game there. One thing that I think would have been really good, Wurzog isn't a bad pick, because the Dwarves don't have a lot of ways to threaten him, and that's one of his biggest strengths. He did use the Effigy of the Git on one of my Runesmiths, if I'm not mistaken, was able to lock him down and actually kill him, or get him really low, as you guys saw. So very well played there. The Squigs were obviously a good choice. They're always strong against Dwarves. They're just such a good unit. I mean, there's not really a Dwarf unit that is great against them, with the exception of the Gyrocopters, which are very, very uncommon, but perhaps they'll become more popular, who knows. But the Orc Arrow Boys are they're okay. I think the Rusty Arrows and maybe, some Night Goblin archers might have been good. The poison effect would have been pretty strong against my Grumbling Guard and other troops like that. Perhaps these ones were, I think the Rusty Arrows are a little bit more expensive, so perhaps that was the reasoning there. But Black Orcs are a great choice. I can't knock someone for that. It was a really close battle. I mean, that could have gone either way. If Wurzog had, slipped away and not, been a route. It looks like he didn't die, but he did get routed off. So, just little things like that can make all the difference. So, really well played to my opponent, Sith Salsiche. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Dwarf cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.